Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Welcome to the stream.
Welcome. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. It's an interesting feeling to be doing Story Club at the top of the week. Thank you everyone for the making the adjustment.
We appreciate it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
And
thank you.
if you're coming across this video, welcome to Science Fiction Story Club. Sarah and I are writers and we're working our way week by week, story by story through this anthology, The Big Book of Science Fiction, edited by and Jeff Vandermeer. And it's a cool vibe. We got a Discord. We're hanging out on Thursdays. We're working our way through a horror short story anthology as well. Welcome. Welcome if you're new to the operation. Sarah,
Hello.
you sent me a picture. Before we get into the conversation, Sarah and I usually
Okay.
do a quick writing check-in. So if you're a writer, let us know what you're working on. And, just to hold each other accountable, be cheerleaders for one another, check in. Sarah, briefly, how's the writing? How's the writing today?
Oh, man.
This
Oh,
week?
Mateo's here. Hey, welcome. Writing today, I sent Asa this morning a picture of my binder of over 200 handwritten pages that I've written since June. And I was saying, like, I feel like I've produced so much and yet so little at the same time. I feel like the year's almost over with it being midway through September, feeling the anxieties creep in of the judgmental, like, so what did you accomplish this year? And it doesn't feel like a whole lot. Um, but this is the binder. You
I
can
love
see there's
that.
several reams of notebook paper in here. Um, and
I feel like you're about to teach like middle school science with that,
I mean, I could. There's some scientific discussions in there that got crossed out, but I'm trying to work on no word wasted. So I'm trying to make my peace with, you know what? I've written this much material. A lot of it is usable. I just have to keep moving forward, not get too discouraged.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I
Yeah,
see
everyone.
Mateo's comment here.
Mateo, yeah, still working on Act 2 of my YA middle grade urban fantasy.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Excellent.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And how about you? Like, I know last week we talked about getting some writing in, or at least not jumping straight into work until 9 a.m. How is that going? How has it gone? How has it not gone?
It's going okay. It's shaping up to be a good writing week. I taking the pressure off to write something that will like stand the test of time.
Oh,
Which which
oh,
which like I do think is like an essential aspiration. Like if we're sitting down and we're doing this, like let's do it for real, for real.
yeah.
But it can. I've tried to just be like, you know what? So I have this whole idea of I'm gonna try to write this short story that I'm working on as if Hemingway were writing it, as if Shirley Jackson were writing it, and as if Samantha Schweblin, my new favorite writer, was writing it.
I
Just
was gonna
like
say I
let
don't
that
know who that
happen.
is.
Well, she's this Argentine writer that I am like literally obsessed with and always talking about. So she just came out with a new collection. But so I'm just kind of like, it's okay. Think like you're in school, be a student, learn. It's
Mm,
okay. Just work, keep going, faith, all
mm.
that good stuff. Yeah. You know?
I appreciate you saying that. Like, pretend like you're still in school. I feel
No.
like I feel like I'm at my most close-minded when I assume that I've learned everything. I'm at my most I don't know, I'm at my worst when I, for whatever reason, think that I have everything figured out. So, what a beautiful mindset to stay in, the perpetual learner. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's right.
Yeah. Good.
So let's talk about this story. So everybody, this week we have a story called "The Doom of Principal City" by a
Yeah.
Russian writer named Yefim Zozulya. This is a translated story. This story was written in
I want to say 1918.
1918. 1918. So we'll get into some great context about this writer. This was a Soviet era writer engaging with literature during a highly politicized time in their respective countries that they were living in during that time. But let's talk about the story. In a
Yeah.
nutshell, Sarah, telling your friend at the bar version. What's the Doom of Principal City about?
Oh my gosh, I would be very excited to tell my friend at the bar about this story. So basically, it's a sort of high-level overview of what happens to a city when it is invaded in a very strange way. Um, so there's this city, it's called Principal City, and we don't know where it is. It might be in Russia, it might be somewhere else. But basically, there is an army outside of the city, and they're sending them flowers, and they are playing music, and they are proclaiming poetry, and the citizenry reacts by saying like, oh, this is awful, this is miserable, how dare they torture us. And this goes on for a while. Everybody in the city has a similarly melodramatic, it seems, reaction. But as things go on, as the invaders talk about building a new city above Principal City, which reminded me a lot of the new overworld that we read a few weeks ago, um, it become, at least for me, it became increasingly difficult to understand maybe who was in the right and who was in the wrong. And because all of a sudden, at least me in my reading of it, I thought that maybe the citizens in Principal City were being a little melodramatic, but then things got real bad. Things got real bad. Some folks in Principal City decide to rebel. Someone is setting fires. Someone is setting off bombs, and the correctional teams, which have these amazing names of, I need to tell you this: the Minister of Quantity, the Minister of Illusions, the Minister of Quiet, the Minister of Politeness. All of these ministers that came over from the invading country, they start killing, they start burning, they start doing some really deeply upsetting things. And I think I want to talk, as we get into this, about some of the language that is using. Finally, the citizens riot and continue burning things, including bridges, libraries, museums. And it's all to they're creating their own destruction to the sound of their own cheering. And there is so much to unpack here. I mean, Asa, what were your first impressions, and or is there anything important narrative wise that I left out?
Well, there was one thing that I kind of caught that it will be a cool place to look immediately, where it's like you said, we don't know where it takes place. And I feel like we have the speck of a clue of where it might take place. So this is on page 50. By and large, though, both groups, this is the Principal City and the other people, lived a life of restlessness and peace at the same time, often tormented and rarely joyous, but always nearly always full of hope, just the way people live in the world. So I was like, this is not the world.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I don't think that's like a firm interpretation of that sentence, but I did like, it's like, this is a story about other worlds, and this thing happens over there that's just like our world.
Oh, I liked that. I like that reading. That did not even cross my mind, but I think that's completely valid. Oh my gosh, I love that now. Just the way people live in the world. I had sort of interpreted that as like, yeah, this is just how people live. But I think that in the world, I think you're onto something there. And it would be interesting to see, like you said earlier, this is a translation, and I'd be curious to see like if the original, was it Russian? Yeah. Is more telling one way or the other. So, I love that.
Fun fact about the Russian language. I'm 96% sure about this. As a former Russian student, the word for world is the same as the word for peace.
What?
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I studied Russian forever ago and only got so far, but I'm pretty sure, which would make that sentence read the following two ways: just the way people live in the world, just the way people live in peace.
Wow.
A life of restlessness and peace at the same time, often tormented and rarely joyous, but always full of hope.
Mm. That's
So
so good. And it's so, I feel like that's so poignant too.
I know,
Accidentally or on
just a
purpose.
beautiful. I mean, who knows? I'm really hope I don't get it wrong here, folks, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm comfortable assuming you're right.
Yeah, I'm with that. We can embrace it. Where to start on this story? I think that, well, I guess just in context of Story Club so far, that is a useful place for me a little bit. If you haven't popped on and joined the train, which is Sci-Fi Story Club, we've worked our way through 5 or 6 stories now. The prior two have been of a certain specific kind of form that's a little challenging. They're called contes philosophiques. These are a type of fable, and this was a straightforward story in a lot of ways. So I guess in that regard, it was a breath of fresh air to be told a story that had a beginning, middle, and end, a clear, linear narrative that seemingly, I don't know, this moved quickly, the story for me. So that was kind of just like my first impression, which isn't necessarily an insight to this story, but it was like, in engaging with this broader history of sci-fi, is like, okay, now we're back to like storytelling.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting too. I noticed in the Jeff and Ann Vandermeer have done a wonderful job with providing us a little bit of context about the writers before each city. One thing that I noticed was they were talking about this author and said his work is reminiscent of contes philosophiques. And I was like, oh, I know what that is now. So it was really, I think it was really good, and maybe this was just me, but as difficult as it was for me to get through the structure of a conte philosophique, which, if you're not familiar with it, is basically it's more of a fable. It's more of a moral story than it is a story. It's more, I went to here and I went to here and it was beautiful and it was bad and here's why, instead of this person went on an adventure. I think it was really good to have that sort of context, especially because this is so similar. I mean, not super similar, but reminiscent of the New Overworld, which is one of the stories we read a few weeks ago, which was a conte philosophique. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. You're going to hear me say that a lot today.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what were some things that stood out for you when you read it?
Oh my gosh. Okay, can I hold up my book and show you like my notes? Like, this is just even the first page, and like it gets more intense as you go on through the story. I wrote a lot of notes. Yes, I write directly in the book.
Same.
Nobody send me hate mail. Oh my gosh. So at first I felt myself feeling exasperated, and I thought I knew what kind of story this was going to be. And maybe that was, I don't know if that came from the conte philosophique, where I expected there to be a very clear setup of this is right, this is wrong, here's what the moral's going to be right at the outset, like I think we got with a lot of the other ones. So this one gave me the assumption I knew what was going to happen. And then at the end, everything, at least for me, got turned on its head, and I started asking more questions than I started with. But honestly, the biggest thing, the thing that I called out to my partner, Tim, because this was like so incredulous to me, or incredible to me. I was incredulous of it. Bottom of page 48. So as this non-violent war is raging, as people react to this invading city, the citizens of Principal City. I need to read this to you because I think he had a vision of like what social media would eventually become. Did you catch this? Like, I need to share this with you.
Please,
Can I?
yeah,
Okay.
read it to me. I'm on the edge of my seat here. Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
I'm just going to read you a short paragraph. And you tell me if this sounds at all familiar if you've been on social media in the last 5 years. Party leaders, heads of social movements, and groups engaged in settling personal scores were harassing each other. Bitter confusion and spiritual devastation were universal now. Even serious minded and governmental newspapers started dedicating a lot of space to personal polemics that were not free of spiteful accusations, vindictive attacks, and intent to offend and humiliate rather than to establish the truth.
I like didn't even connect that to our
Oh my
life.
gosh.
No, I know. I mean, it's obviously so, you read it out loud like that, and it's stark how that really could describe the contemporary moment.
Yeah. And in a way, it honestly, and I think I've said this before in Story Club about some of the more bleak ideas from stories past. So this is 1918. This isn't new. What we're living through right now, going to Thanksgiving dinner or a family dinner and having a bitter argument with someone who you don't agree with, it's not new. It's been going on for a long time, and human nature is human nature. And honestly, that brought me a little bit of comfort that it's like, this isn't a new thing. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate just the general, like, it's easy to engage with these stories and totally forget about our lives and kind of let the fictive universe become the sole one without sort of mapping what's happening in the universe of the story onto our own. And that was like, yeah, Thanksgiving dinner coming up if you celebrate Thanksgiving. And yeah, we know that can be a fraught encounter, depending on how much of your family shows up or what wings,
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. One thing I think the most interesting, the part of my book that received both a check, a star, and a circle
Ooh.
was this business about the epidemic of optimism, identifying.
Yeah.
Well, so for context, if you didn't get to this story, there's this foreign or alien group that comes and takes over a city, and they build a city above it. And they, in their conquering this, identify problems that their defeated people possess. And one of them is an epidemic of optimism. So I'm just going to read this paragraph. This is coming from the victors. I would be happy if I could humor you, but I regret to say we find it impossible to waste such a good chance to battle with the outdated, fruitless, and in our view, detrimental epidemic of optimism, which Principal City had been stricken by, and as you can see, fallen victim to. This struck me as like a really interesting thought. And this actually did make me think of, quote unquote, our life, real life, particularly America, ironically, as this is like a Soviet story, which I feel like in many strains of American culture, we grow up with this like just a kind of optimism. And I think like that is like a national narrative, but even like an everyday, it's like glass half full, like, like be positive, keep up a positive attitude. Like, I feel like that is as a distinctly American thing. And just to hear optimism in general, like outside of the cultural context, whether it's, Soviets or American, just to identify optimism as a social ill was exciting to me. And just to like pursue that a little bit.
That's so interesting. How did you reconcile the thought of this epidemic of optimism with how the citizens were behaving?
Well, it just seemed they were really, there was a lot of like hand wringing, they were really like deluded, and spending emotional energy like in the wrong way. It makes me think of, might lose some people on this like analogy, and I don't really want to make it about during the World Cup. There was in the final, there's like memes and jokes about the way different like coaches and countries do their like halftime or like halftime talks. Okay. And like, I think it was the European final, and it was like, I don't know, Germany or England. And this is playing into national stereotypes, but it all connects to this. And how one team was the coach is like, okay, we need to like go further to the line and we need to follow the defenders back, and then it's like it cuts to like the locker room of the English team, and the coach is like, and our grandfathers 700 years ago, invented this game for this day, and just kind of mocking. This was mostly like playful English soccer fans making fun of themselves in a really fun way. But it made me think of that. I did directly lead to that when reading that. And it's just like, these people are just like, you've been conquered. And at the same, they're just like, they have so many feelings. He's like, just kill me now, just like so many feels without engaging with the task at hand. And it was interesting to me that these invading people engage with that as like disgust. There was really not like the way in which they reacted to the reaction, the impractical, romantic, emotion-driven reactions of the people they were conquering was like they disgusted them, and not only frustrated them, but it like bothered them,
I think that's such an interesting point, and you've just made me think of something. I had been struggling this whole time with, as I said like earlier in the intro, when we were talking about like the narrative of this story, like what exactly is the issue here? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? And at the beginning, it's set up like, oh, like it is silly to be upset and to, content warning, self-harm and suicide for a lot of this story. They're bombarding them with flowers. They're playing music. They're playing laughter. And it's like, yeah, it is melodramatic to say like, oh, I'm going to go and kill myself because of this. It seemed out of proportion. However, I think that you're onto something there about what we assume about this culture and what we assume about the invading people and how much or how little they're able to like truly communicate with each other. And what something means maybe on one side, does it mean the same thing to the other side? Like, were the flowers, at first I was like, oh, they're sending them flowers. They could be sending them bombs. They're complaining about being sent flowers instead of bombs. Well, they should just be grateful that they're not getting bombed, which later, they do. But I mean, in the terms of both of these cultures, was that actually like a malicious act? And were the principal city citizens actually not overreacting?
Right. Well, I think we have a couple. What we do have in the story is that they explicitly state why they haven't wiped out the principal city, and they say, it's like, look, y'all have interesting culture, and we want to preserve that. We want to make a museum of your city, which and so they value these people at some level, right? They value them enough not to kill them. They identify their culture as worthy of preservation, even if there's a little condescension in there. It's like, it's cute. Yeah. It's cute. It's like coming up on like, a village, and just being like, oh, this is quaint. Like, we're just going to build a city over you so that, we're not going to take anybody out. So at some level, the morals, the morality of the invading force values life enough that they're not going to like immediately wipe them out, and values culture enough that they are actively actually creating a circumstance to preserve the conquering force, right?
Yeah. Which reminded me a lot of a few weeks ago, we read, Mechanopolis. I'm trying to remember what the whole thing was. I'm not going to be able to remember. Oh, The Triumph of Mechanics? No, that was the rabbit one. Anyway, we wrote a story about Mechanopolis, where the whole city is run by machines. And they also had a museum to human culture, which I thought was really interesting, because we talked in that story about like, who is that museum serving? And in this case, it sounds like it would be serving to honor the oppressed, the citizens of Principal City who are being kind of stomped all over. But but yeah, there's I really liked the word you used, condescension. I think there is a note of that. There is a note of uh superiority, I think, and I don't know, maybe I'm reaching a little too far, but I know that like invading forces see, maybe they see emotion as weak, they see it as foolish, and maybe that contributes a little bit to their wanting to preserve the culture. There's a lot going on there.
I want to make sure we include everybody here
Mm-hmm.
today. Thank
There's
you
a
all for
really
being
good
here. Yeah. Mateos is a very dramatic version of censorship, it sounds like. The
yes.
story as a whole, is that what you mean there, Mateo? Lore Huntress says, "Hi all, hi Lore.
Hi,
There were
Laura.
so many crazy moments, but it stunned me when they encased the protesters in cement and they were called cubes of immature dreams." Woo. I felt the same, and
Oh my gosh.
I definitely want to turn to that because I think whenever there's like a standout image that is worth paying attention to, and yes, can totally illuminate. Where is that? Do you know where that is, Sarah?
I do. So, oh my gosh, this was um oh gosh, well I thought I had it.
Yeah, exactly. I have it here somewhere as
Let's
well.
see. Nope. I want to say it's like right near the end. Oh, yeah. Well, because I wrote murder in all caps. And oh, okay. So, okay, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about what leads up to it. And I'm still looking for where this is, even though
Yeah,
it
well,
was
it's okay. Well, it'll turn itself up.
it'll pop
It's
up.
not going anywhere.
Ugh, it's gonna drive me crazy. Um oh, it's so interesting. And so, okay, we're looking at the reaction of the principal city citizens to this invading force. And up until now, the invading force has been nonviolent. They've been sending flowers. I mean, they've been harassing the citizens by like playing music and playing this canned laughter, this like laugh track to their lives that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but they don't really start up the violence until um the people of who live in the city themselves, the people who are being built over and conquered, they incite the violence, I believe. And
Well, yeah, I
they
mean,
drown out, yeah.
from the jump, you had like the official state uh, ceded, or sort of gave up, surrendered, and then you still had guerrilla fighters not giving up. So like the conquered folks kept fighting back sort of frequently.
Yes. And they would even drown out the noise of the music and the canned laughter. Like that they were shooting off bombs and guns, like even part to drown that out. Like not
Yeah,
necessarily firing at people on the other side, but just firing their weapons to cover up the noise, which I thought was interesting.
yeah.
But yeah.
Like the laughter thing, to me that was interesting, in line with this like epidemic of optimism that the sort of
Ooh.
tack that the invading force took was like corrective. It's like we're going to
Yeah.
try to fix you. And it's like every time
Yeah.
your government, because the way the laugh track worked, if I'm remembering right, it's like every time your government does something that actually is bad governance, we're going to laugh at you. And every time you do something good later, it's like that's the stuff. Later the laugh track machine also does positive reinforcement for when the government does quote unquote smart stuff. And at first I was like, oh, this is just a more advanced society. And they're
Mm.
just trying to help these folks out. They're trying to pop this romantic balloon. They got all
Mm-hmm.
these feelings. They're like, oh, no. We have a society. And they're like, everybody relax. You don't. You're done for. Let's just all be cooler heads. But I don't think it's that generous because I do think it's quite dark, especially once we get to the government of obedience.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, and even before the government of obedience, or maybe along with the government of obedience, did you notice that out of all the ministers they list in section 9, the minister of politeness, all that. They have a minister of quantity. And I had to read this twice to make sure I wasn't like misreading it. The minister of quantity, whose duty was to limit and, if need be, reduce population growth. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they've got murder written into that. So I think that came even before the cubes of immature dreams. I'm still going to try to find that.
I know,
But
it's killing me. Laura, do you know do you have the collection? And if so, do you know what page it's on? Because yeah, I just totally am excited about that passage
I know.
also.
The problem is I underlined so many things because so many things felt so important. Can we talk while we're looking for that? And maybe we will find it as we are talking about this.
Oh,
Can we
section
talk?
11, paragraph 6 or 7.
Oh my gosh, it was literally right in front of me. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Okay. Do you want to talk about that real quick? Do you want to?
Yeah, read us the passage.
Absolutely. So, there had been a few uprisings in Principal City, all of them brutally suppressed. In 2 cases, small riotous areas were surrounded by a steel vise of vehicles and troops and then mercilessly cemented. And I put a bunch of question marks next to that, but it continues. The huge resulting cubes of cement, graves to so many lives, came to be known as the cubes of immature dreams.
I mean, it's awesome. It's
Like,
it's
okay.
just so awesome.
And it doesn't that I feel like so many things in this story are subtle or vague. This is not. This he explicitly says, like, graves of so many lives. Like, yeah, all these people are dead. Like, he does not leave any room for doubt there.
Yeah,
Like,
it was simultaneous quelling of public dissent and construction of a monument in the same act. You know, is what's going on there. You know,
maybe
it's like,
that's the museum. These are statues for the museum.
yeah.
Okay, this is amazing.
I'm glad we found that.
I'm very excited.
The one line that I underlined that I actually underlined a lot. Usually, I just kind of brackets or check marks and stuff. But this, in terms of like with the word for wordness, later. This is soon after in section 12. There is the laugh track is doing its thing, and the guy who runs it is escaping, and he says, "Fools." He shouted, wallowing all by himself in the cloudless blue sky. You can never win. The backbone of the world is reasonable violence, not a wild, self-confident riot. Blind, rebellious worms, despicable, optimistic calves. What are you hoping for? Did you notice that line?
It's so funny that you say that. It's so funny that you say that because when I was like, oh, should we talk about something else? What I wanted to talk about was reasonable violence, which is literally the passage you just read. And I think that is so key to what we're looking at, maybe. And I think it's notable. I think it's notable that so much of the story is not spent in violence. And initially, if you go back all the way to the beginning and correct me or just guide me if I am like way off course here. But Lore Huntress says I highlighted that line too, reasonable violence. Well,
Yeah,
it
good alt
reminded me,
title.
oh, it's so good. Well, reasonable loss, like we quantify, human life in so many ways. And initially, when this invading force comes in, and we never get a name for the invading force other than what they're referred to in the context of Principal City. So I'm just going to keep calling them the invading force, even though force, is also a violent term. I want to say initially, like, they didn't even think to fight back because the president was like, well, they clearly mathematically could overthrow us. So we're just going to surrender so that we don't lose any lives. Like, do you think that if they had engaged in some reasonable violence, this would have ended sooner or differently?
I thought they had. I thought there had been like a war, and then like the war was lost, and then the person like publicly surrendered.
That
Or
may be true.
enemy troops were expected to enter the city at the top of 2.
Right.
And then
Not a single detachment ever appeared. They just stay outside of the city and play music. Like that's literally what they do.
but when does the surrender happen?
The
Because I
surrender I
remember reading that the
have.
people were not surprised by the surrender.
Mm.
But you're thinking that the surrender happened completely independent. There had been no violence. There had been no bloodshed, as it were.
I mean, and maybe that's I needed to do a closer reading. But so in section 1, according to the Chief General's strategic plan that was published yesterday, we are weakened by 2 6/10. It would have been madness to struggle. And then at the bottom of 43 in section 3, it said everybody knew that a lot had been written with regard to the downfall of Principal City long before the enemy won. And it was the enemy winning due to a fight, due to violence, or was it just the president saying, I give up?
Honestly, I think you're right.
This isn't even worth
Yeah.
not worth fighting, but I would rather
Yeah, they're
gosh,
unable to put up a fight.
Yeah.
Where's our army? They can't put up a fight. A fight has not happened. I think you're totally right. And it's like the opening image is of people saying that they've arrived. So there's no bloodshed. This is a capitulation without conflict on behalf of the president.
Yeah. Well, and we get a sense that there's a lot of them and that they have the capacity for force and violence. But at the beginning, the president uses, I even think, the word reason multiple times, like citizens, use your reason. We're going to fight this with reason. And there were so many interesting little contradictions. They end up reasoning a little bit with each other. I'm kind of scanning through. And we see the president talking about being reasonable, but also like going into what appeared at first to be, to me, like a melodramatic fit and like threatening to kill himself when, I don't know. So who is being reasonable and like who is not? And what does reasonable mean?
This existential threat that these other people pose. They fly planes over your city and they drop flowers.
Ooh.
And they put ads in your sky. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was getting excited about ads in the sky because I don't know if that's completely off topic though, and I don't want to derail what you're saying.
All I'm saying is that like this is in terms of like invading forces go. So far we've got like, free flowers for mom and a busy sky, like, okay, we have to deal with these like completely banal ads for, Coco watches and shoes. That's not, if you're going to get conquered, it could be a worse situation, but he anticipates it, right? Principal City has fallen citizens, the president said. We do not know the terms of peace yet, but they will be horrific. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I guess like the intro to this story informs us that this is parody. And my question was like, what are we parodying?
Yeah.
Like, what is being parodied? And like that's where I felt kind of, I have some ideas, but I was curious to put that to the floor. Like what exactly is being parodied here? Like the obvious reading is like the Soviet state or whatever. But what is that, what does that mean per se exactly?
Yeah.
And why is it still interesting?
Well, I feel like you have more insight probably on the historical context of what might have been going on. No? Okay. I was like, oh, Russian stuff.
I mean, like not in any kind of meaningful way that I feel, it's, not like credible,
Okay.
But I think there's echoes here of like 1984 or Animal Farm, like other larger critiques of state programs, state initiatives, the names of these things, like even the cubes of immature dreams, it's like the 5-year plan, whatever, like just this kind of lofty language, general obscure language that you can map any like ideology onto,
Yeah, and those the terms for things, what they called things, it struck me as a larger sort of picture of the role of marketing and propaganda.
Ooh, say more about that.
And oh my gosh. Well, okay, I have a background in marketing and I have a very contentious relationship with my career of over a decade. So I'm extra sensitive. And so I wrote right here at the end of the second section here. Um, they talk about putting these advertisements up in the sky. And, at most they're mildly annoying and annoyingly brazenly representing even smaller, more marginal companies. And so they're looking up, and the president is sort of at odds with the ad space buy with these companies. Like he wants part of the sky to advertise to his own people, and they're like, okay, but you have to like make up for the lost revenue. And it was just like, it was so
Yes.
weirdly real about like, yeah, that's what would happen. um and it was even more interesting that later on, in regards to these advertisements in the sky, people develop ad blindness, which is another thing. Hey,
Mm,
Drayton. People develop ad blindness like explicitly. um And so ad blindness is when you just get so used to something you don't notice it anymore. So
right.
like you go onto a website, there's a banner for, I don't know, shoes. You just ignore it
Yeah,
after a
yeah,
while
your
because
brain stops like calculating it or
yeah.
whatever. Right.
And so I think there's something there with, okay, with advertising versus propaganda. What are the invaders saying? What are advertisers saying? Who are the advertisers aligned with? What's their agenda? What is the agenda of the principal city government? And I think even beyond that, what does it mean to have your life and your space taken over? I think for me, that was the crux, I think, of the story. So I'm not 100% sure what it would have been satirizing, but I feel like what we're talking about here is, at what point do you start to get angry about your life being taken over and about your space being taken over? And maybe that's, again, me putting on a modern reading. And, because that is actually a very real thing right now. One of my favorite drives in town, they just put up a whole bunch of billboards so I can't see the woods
Mm.
anymore.
Oh,
And I'm like, excuse me, those were my woods that I was looking at when I was driving. And, so there's a lot going on there. There's also, yes, Mateo, this is good.
he shares this. I put that up as a solidarity.
Mateo says, I can't ignore ads. Ads frustrate me too much. Asa, are you the same way?
I'm like pretty oblivious to like most of reality, which sounds like a preposterous thing to say, but I do think I spend most of my days in my head,
Yeah.
in a way that's like not awesome. So I don't really see ads that much. I'm actually really curious. I love ads though, from a sort of like, I think they're the most interesting thing. They're so interesting. And they have all the money. They get so much talent. So many talented people make ads, write
Mhm.
ads. So
Mhm.
I'm not like, I've given myself over to the society of the spectacle. If you've, have you read that Guide to Bored,
No.
that famous book? Oh man, this is
No.
this is essential reading. I feel like a certain kind of college kid like reads this. It's like this French text from the 60s called The Society of the Spectacle, and how, yeah, like
I'm
ads.
writing this down.
Yeah, it's clutch. It's important. Well, I mean, I think in terms of what struck me here, in terms of, yeah, what does it mean? I like this question of kind of what does it mean to get taken over? And I think maybe what this story suggests is that what we will lay down and die for
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily make sense, uh,
Mm.
isn't necessarily what we think, and might actually be preposterous.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's that whole like, yeah, nothing activated more diplomacy and engagement than the ad space.
Yeah.
I think the facile reading of that is like capitalism is, but no, I actually think it's like, no, this is like something we can let's not talk about the hard stuff, which is to say that you're conquering us and building a city over us. It's like,
Mm.
at space, we got to negotiate, folks. Like lost revenue, it just keeps life more normal.
Yeah.
And it's like once life can't be normal anymore, that's when these people start to like fail and cultural starts to fall apart and crime goes through the roof and all the degeneracy happens. Is like, it's not so much that there's like an enemy force on the streets or whatever. It's like certain simple things have been undermined.
Mm. That's so
You know?
true. Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. Those, what did you say? The simple things have been undermined. Like the way of life has been put off course just enough that I
Yeah,
mean, and then like
it's like a sense of being like violated.
mhm,
I've gotten pickpocketed so many times, and often it's like it's not a big deal.
mm,
And then I'll have like wallets that are like intended to be pickpocketed, right? It's like, okay, so I'm not going to put very much in it, but it's still just such an act of like violation
yeah,
that like sticks with you.
yeah.
So it's like not about the wall. It's not about the flowers falling from the planes. It's like, I didn't
Mhm.
want those flowers. I didn't ask for them. They came into my space and they came from somebody who's like, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. And it's like that laughter. It can be read in like, oh, this is silly and fun, and we're all laughing because it's contagious. But at the same time, we didn't ask for this laughter to be in our space. Like, we don't want this in our lives. And it is being, pushed on us. It's being forced on us. I think that is. I think that is a lot of what's going on in this story because I had to go back and reread it and reevaluate what I thought of these initial reactions from the president and from the citizenry of Principal City. And on my second reading, I sympathized a lot more with the Principal City people who were so deeply upset when the flowers came. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if that was flavored by later figuring out that the conquerors were going to like murder everyone and drown them in concrete and do all these awful things. And like, I still can't get over the minister of quantity keeping their population in check. It's just so subtly mentioned. Um, but like, where does it start? I think is one of the big question. Oh, sorry. Drayton says a Twitch ad popped up during your discussion. Oh my gosh, that's so appropriate though. Did you invite that ad into your space?
This is
No?
our world. Yeah.
It is. But so okay, how much is it harming us? How much are these flowers harming us? When do we start to say I am being harmed? When do we start to say I'm not okay with this? My space is being invaded or violated. Is it when they start to play music from outside of the town?
Well, it's definitely not,
Like,
if the beginning of the story sets up this argument that unreasonable things lead people to overreact, i.e., flowers falling from the sky, too many ads, just why don't you just kill me now?
right.
That same argument is kind of repeated at the end.
Ooh, do tell.
So let's talk about the ending.
Yes, please. Yes. Oh my gosh.
At the end, like at the end of section 11, it's like basically things were okay. Everybody lived in hope. There were good days and bad days, just the way people live in the world. The horror came without warning. On a sultry summer noon, a factory blew up on the outskirts of Principal City. The risk of fire in the city had been factored in and usually was quenched in a few minutes, but it was otherwise this time. The firefighters were met with gunshots. So everything is like basically okay.
Mm-hmm. But is it?
And then someone starts a fire, someone sets a factory on fire, and then murders the firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all people of the Principal City, is how I read it.
Yes. No, I read it that way too. And before we dig deeper into that ending, I think that what you've just said illuminates something that I'd been struggling with in the text. And that was how everything we see in the story is related to us by the governments. And we don't really get any boots on the ground, individual citizens. And it just struck me how disconnected the ruling class was from the citizens, because that's where the rebellion is coming from.
Great point.
It's not coming from anything that the president does or after he's, usurped. Like very little is said about the commoners or the citizens of the city except for they're rebelling. But we don't really get a close-up view of that. We get passive voice, factory was bombed. Okay. Why? Who, is this, like who's doing this? What led up to it? Was this a hard decision for these people? Like, we don't know. We just have this very high up overview.
Yeah, but it's I think you're right, because it's not a neutral overview, because we do get like the president,
Right.
It's not like a totally neutral third person omniscient. It does dip into like point of views, but you're right, it's all like.
But we don't get we
Right.
get the president, we get the ministry, but we don't get like the people. And this is where we see the people take action. And it is a little, maybe not jarring, because we've just been talking about people drowning in cement. But yeah, everything blows up horribly. Okay, rant over, please continue.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the crux of it, right? Is like the message, the parody, the lesson learned. And I'm really curious specifically about the last couple paragraphs exactly, and it's unclear to me at least, and this is just a general point of clarification, who is left at the end of this thing. So if we go to like 3 paragraphs from the end, or 4 paragraphs from the end, the great destruction went on all day and night, and in the morning tired explosions capped the doom of Principal City. In such a manner, simple and spontaneous, it perished. But then it goes on to describe survivors. What was your take there? Are those survivors? But then it also says Upper City was gone.
Yes.
Yep. Right. So there's these total words: gone, perished, doom, but occasional crowds of blackened, ragged, and bloodied people. Many of them were wounded, many dying, many were dancing, bereft of their sanity, but the wounded and the dying and the mad alike were singing joyously and loudly songs in honor of the rising and dazzlingly indifferent sun.
Beautifully written. Oh, that was very striking. Even the language there. But as far as my take of who's left, it's there will always be, I think, survivors and stragglers. It's where we get a lot of science fiction movies and literature, is like the post-apocalyptic, who's left after the apocalypse, after doom happens, who's left, and what does the story then mean when we look at things through their eyes. These survivors at the end, and maybe this is a question more than a statement, but they're cheering. We see like blow up the bridges, etc. Hooray, hooray, hooray. They're cheering on this destruction. A fiery vortex shot up into the sky. Hooray, hooray. Is this what freedom looks like? Is this what are the people, the survivors at the end, in the context of freedom and having agency over their own lives? Are they better off than they were in the beginning when they were being covered with flowers and drowned out by trumpets? Like, have they won their independence? And I think that's what I was left thinking about.
That's tough. I think that there are jabs at the society. The society is identified as antiquated, out of date, essentially an old model, right? Is if we take that to be true, then what the story is showing us is that, like, when given, like, this society, part of its outmodedness is it's going to rebel at all costs. It's going to take up arms, literally, against nonsensical things, and literally burn their entire society to the ground. But it's interesting. It's tough. This is where I just don't have a ton of confidence in terms of, like, what are we parodying here? Like, what was it about this society that made it so, reckless with itself?
One thing that I did take away that you just reminded me of was, let's see, in the Doom of Principal City. This is again from the sort of intro about the author, put on our anthology here. So in this story, the surreal elements of the satire make the story timeless, well positioned to predict the absurdities and counter logic of Soviet life to come. And so they hint a little bit, um, but they don't necessarily say what Zozulya, who was jailed actually several times for engaging in revolutionary activities. Um, those words stuck out to me: absurdities and counter logic. Um, and again, I don't know enough history to know. Yes, Drayton. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Drayton has a really good anarchy looks like freedom to those who have always been enslaved. Interesting. Yes. Um, who
But
has agency, right?
presumably they weren't enslaved prior to the arrival of this.
They weren't, and that's what's interesting. And I think that's why Drayton's comment was interesting to me too. I don't think they necessarily were enslaved or oppressed. We don't really know what things were like before this conquering nation or
Good
whatever
point.
it is arrives. Like we don't know what their lives were like, which that is also fascinating because that seems like such necessary context for a story like this. Like that's we look at I know this isn't really a hero's journey story, but like in the first act of a story, you usually set up the status quo, and we are just not privy to that. We're here
Okay.
right when the action spikes.
I think we can make a case, though. I think we can make a case of the status quo, which is that, okay, I feel like we're getting somewhere. Like,
Okay, good. Continue.
from the jump, these are a deluded people. Like the
Go on.
status quo, well, it's just like what we were saying. Like they just gave up. And I think maybe some of this parody is like, we are weakened by 2 6/10. It's like sort of a nonsense. Like they've manufactured their weakness. They've in their own, like they're not even at town yet, and the soldiers coming in. It's like we're weakened by 2 6/10, and the soldiers locked themselves in the barracks. Everyone's like, there's hysteria essentially.
Yeah.
Which, as far as we can tell, is without reason.
Right.
So
and they've given up right before it even starts.
So what we know from this society is that they really don't have a clear sense of reality. They're like really a narrativizing society. They like kind of identify as victims before anything's even happened.
They identify as victims before anything has happened.
And maybe that's the larger parody, is like society's capacity for telling stories about itself that aren't at all like rooted in what's actually happening.
I mean, that would go along with the themes of marketing and anarchy and these terms like minister of quantity and the minister of hope and the
blocks.
Yeah. Oh
blocks.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my gosh. The blocks of what was it? Foolish dreams?
Cubes
of immature
dreams. Immature dreams. Such a euphemism, I guess. Oh man.
Immature dream. I mean, the immature dreams being, daring to rebel, wanting to have your own agency over your life and the place where you live. Like, there's just a lot. I've said this so many times. There's a lot going on here.
A lot going on here. So, as a writer, Sarah, is there anything that you think you might try to emulate here or feel directly inspired by, or is this making you think about anything you're working on in an interesting way?
Why, yes. Ooh. I'm not going to say that anything, that I write is this amazing, but two things really stuck out to me. And that was, first of all, the power in the simple language. And again, I know this is a translation, so I'm not sure how much of this is authorial intent and how much of this is just the translator. But there are not, contrast this with last week for Horror Story Club, we read The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. And there were words in there that I don't know how to pronounce. In this story, it is very fifth grade reading level. But it was so powerful. It was so powerful. I mean, especially this last, like, singing joyously, loudly, songs in honor of the rising and dazzlingly indifferent sun. Like, these are words, simple words, but they are put together with such power. And I think I want to go through and just take a look at why that is and like how it's achieved, and if it is like how much of it hinges on like our emotional uh state in that point of the story, or if the words
Mm,
themselves are just that powerful. So I want to go
mm.
back and take a look at that. I was really struck by the simple, not simple, plain language maybe, or just, I don't know, upfront, earnest,
Yeah,
basic
direct.
everyday language. Yeah. And then the other thing really is I started thinking in this like circular way about, looking at science fiction from the past and how that predicts so many things, and how we're still writing about these things today, and how we're still setting those things in the future. You see a lot
Mm,
of science fiction today about, rampant advertising and the internet, and essentially like a hive mind, and like what AI is capable of. And I don't know, I think it was really inspiring for me to see those themes even back in 1918. So
mm.
those
Yeah,
were,
that's
how
a
about
great
you?
point. I mean that. Well, I actually would love to like hear more about that. I'm so intrigued by what you were saying about how kind of like how certain text lands given where we're at that point in the story. I think that's like a really sophisticated way of thinking that I don't always think. Like, I think it's like you could just look at the language and you're like, why is this language simple here? Why is this language direct here? But I think taking what into your account is like, where are we at when we get to this language? Um, here, Mateo has a thought here. As
Mm,
a writer, I think this story is a clear example of bias in POV character. That
mm.
concept is interesting in writing. The POV character, I guess, being the president, to the extent we have one.
Which is interesting because they always say history is written by the victors.
Yeah, not this one.
So it's interesting. It's interesting to have our history here being told by, a side that you know may or may not have quote unquote won, depending on so many definitions of what one means. And
Right.
yeah.
But is that something you can sort of like talk about more, Sarah?
Yeah.
About that, like where you're at emotionally in the story when that language hits you?
Yeah.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but if
No, this
there's
is
like,
something
yeah, okay,
this is something
cool.
I love to talk about.
Yeah.
So basically, obviously I don't have anything prepared, but I think it goes back to using your empathy as a storyteller to also exist as your story's first reader. And I think that in going and writing things, it does you so much. It'll do you a credit to feel through the story as you're writing it and understand, not quantifiably, but just like subjectively feeling like, okay, my audience is going to be feeling this at this point. I'm feeling this at this point, and working your way to the end and understanding like what are some words that will really hit home due to the emotional journey I've taken my readers on. And the words, like these words here: blackened, ragged, bloodied, wounded, dying, dancing, bereft of sanity, singing joyously, loudly, dazzlingly indifferent sun. These have all been brought up at different points in the story as points of contention, which I think is so interesting. Um, at the beginning, they are harassed by music. And at the end, they're making their own music. At the beginning, they're upset that they can't see the sun because, first, because of the ads, then because of the city, blocking their view of the sky. and now the sun is here, and that's why it's so powerful is that last word. The wounded and the dying and the mad. People have been, dying throughout this whole story. I mean, we didn't even talk about the pigeon man and his suicide and his killing his flock of pigeons with cocaine. But what's so impactful is that this last paragraph brings every single one of those themes back to us with these extremely simple, powerful words. And that's, I think, what makes a really effective ending, at least in the books and short stories that I've read, is how much of the story comes back in that last paragraph and how powerfully is that engineered through language. So, 2 cents.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for going all the way there with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love talking about it. I think that I don't know, empathy is one of the most underrated tools in a writer's toolbox, and the willingness to go along and like try to understand what your audience will be feeling as they move through your work. And it requires you to take a step back from your work and how proud of your work you are, and really really dig into your reader's point of view.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, it's a nice, particularly those last paragraph, those words, the general fifth grade reading style. It's a cool disruptor to the sort of be specific, be more specific. There are times when using more general language that doesn't point us, it's at odds with kind of the imagist driven tradition of certainly English language literature, where it's just like, and I've been reading like Hemingway's like this, and Shirley Jackson's like this. It's just like, put an image on the page, like we imagine the image, and the image is usually like very precise, whereas here it's a little bit more of a wash. Like the way you read it, I thought was really on point. It's like these are kind of cascading over us, but I'm not given a specific image. It's like more of like the feeling of these words is like coming across. And I think where I'm at right now is like just fetishizing images in the way that, say, Hemingway's prose is known for, like, but and then it's like, this is like a nice reminder. It's like, okay, that's not always the best way to end something, certainly.
I am looking up right now Stanley Kunitz, famous quote, "End with an image and don't explain." And I don't know if that's necessarily what you're getting at, but it is quote unquote best practice. At least we learn in writing that we should end with an image, a powerful image, and like, don't draw it out, don't over explain it. But I think that, all of those best practices, all of those rules, if they can be broken effectively, they will be more powerful than the best practice. And I think that this story really shows us how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is true. And I also think it's true of like what the story is trying to do. Right. And I think as this is something of a conte philosophique, like if we're supposed to be left with like an intellectual conclusion or a visceral feeling, and I think it's obviously like dangerous to be like, to overthink it. But if we are
to overwrite it,
if we are to be left with like a critique, then maybe something like this kind of language is most appropriate, Yeah. Mateo says image versus emotion. You can describe a landscape or explain how it makes you feel.
And maybe part of that too comes with, I think it still comes with a healthy dose of empathy from the author and understanding what that image will mean to their audience and to their readers.
Yeah.
But I think both can be extremely valid. I know we say show, don't tell, but we also have had so many effective examples of telling and not showing. I mean,
yeah. I think especially until if you hold it, it's like you earn you have an allowance of so many kind of vague, general, expository, telling, not showing sentences. Maybe, I mean, like, no, I mean, like, whatever. Every story has its own, but like if you enter into a story with image, and then you tell, it's going to like pack more punch. You know, it has more, like you've earned our trust a little bit more to identify what you're saying as significant. So I think it's like, especially when that's saved to the end, as it is here, you know, it's been earned a little bit. The generalizing.
Yeah, it's been earned and it's in juxtaposition, you know. I think that's do you have a favorite talking about, you know, stories that end with a powerful image? Do you have like a favorite example of that just off the top of your head?
Oh gosh. I mean, not off the top of my head. I don't. I mean, I do, like, I am kind of a sucker for it. Like, I definitely, whether by conditioning or taste, like, do love the understatement. Like, just like, yeah, a deft, quiet image, you know, pulling back. You know, it's like the kind of sentence that on the first draft you wrote like 5 more sentences after that, and the sentence ends with like, you know, and the wave broke, you know, and like boom, and shivers, you know. I do like that, but I can't think of one off the dome.
Well, I think too, just real quick to that, I think a lot of the power of an ending is not only what's said, but what's not said. And what you withhold can be just as important as what you do say. And endings like this are a lot less effective in like that kind of approach. Like what being, you know, it matters a lot less what's not being said here. But I don't know. I just think that's
well, yeah, and like I do think this is like I keep turning over here because I'm looking for that Ted Chiang collection that I'm reading. Like it does.
I'm like it's up here on my shelf.
Oh, good.
Which is
on all
not
the shelves. I want to read Mateo's comment. Word allowance is also a thing. If something is too wordy, readers lose interest, without a doubt. Sin duda. I think that so Ted Chiang's stories to me embody. I'm not an avid sci-fi reader. I'm becoming one thanks to Story Club here, but like embody the type of sci-fi story that's like idea forward, that presents an elegant, a novel idea presented elegantly. You know, to me, his stories embody that. And I'm not always left feeling something necessarily, but they do present an idea. And I think his stories can have this kind of language sometimes as well, like this more generalizing yet simple language that we see here.
Yeah.
I know he's in this collection.
Yes, he is. He's listed on the cover. In fact,
he's on the cover. He's on the cover of this collection.
He's on the cover. Well, and I was thinking too, I never know how to pronounce their name, but Sixon Liu, who's at the bottom here, I remember, I don't remember if it was the 3-body problem, but I remember that ending in a very powerful image as well. Now I kind of want to go back and take a look at that.
But should we tease out next week?
Why, yes, we should. Yes, we should. Oh, okay. Real quick. I keep saying real quick.
What is the line between speculative fiction and science fiction?
I don't think there is a line. I think that it's one of those like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. I think that speculative fiction tends to be the like overarching umbrella. And then within speculative fiction, you have sci-fi, you have sci-fantasy, you have horror, you have whatever else would go under there.
Fantasy.
Thrillers, fantasy, right? So I think that speculative fiction, science fiction is anything that takes into account, I believe they say this in the beginning of the intro, anything that deals with the future. Speculative fiction, I think, is just anything that deals with how things could be, regardless of time.
Yes, I love that.
Okay. But that's my 2 cents. In the comments, let us know if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Do it, internet.
Do it, internet. All right, next week we have The Comet by W. Du Bois. And tomorrow, the more immediate pitch tomorrow is Horror Story Club. So Horror Story Club, same time, is Shirley Jackson's The Summer People. If you like The Lottery, if you like The Witch, if you like other Shirley Jackson stories, Haunting of Hill House, but have not read The Summer People, it is strong. It is simple. It is fast. It is a page turner, and it's dark, and it ends with a chill. So very excited about that tomorrow.
Very excited too. Yes. And that will be same time?
Same
3
time.
p.m. Central, 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Eastern. Okay.
Yep.
And then next week we're back
yeah,
on
go
Wednesday
ahead.
and Thursdays.
Yeah,
Is
next
that
week.
right?
Next week we'll be back Wednesday and Thursday.
Perfect.
We've got a Discord here. I'm going to read you
Oh,
all
we
the
do.
first sentence of the comment, just so we know what's up. But in the meanwhile, this is the Discord
I will
where the
also
conversation
post.
continues. The comment. This is the first sentence, first paragraph, maybe. He stood a moment on the steps of the bank, watching the human river that swirled down Broadway. Few noticed him. Few ever noticed him, save in a way that stung. He was outside the world. Nothing, as he said bitterly. Bits of the words of the walkers came to him. The comment. All right. That's where we start tomorrow. W. Du Bois. This has got to be one of the first kind of like widely read contribution by a Black science fiction writer, I would imagine. And probably is probably why this is put in the collection. This was early. This was written in 1920. So very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited to dig into it. And I actually didn't know that he wrote much science fiction. So look at me learning.
Yeah, we're gonna find out. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. We haven't scheduled any writing yet. This week's been all over the place, but we might do some writing. We're both on YouTube. Find us on YouTube. Find us on the Discord. And also, I do want to say this again for all you regulars who have heard us say what I just said like a zillion times. This is something that you necessarily. I'd be curious if we can do some exhibition matches, which is to say outside of these anthology story chats. If there's any stories that folks really want to dig in with, let us know in the Discord or in the comments. Yeah. And because we can go farther afield with this project.
Well, and I would have never read Shirley Jackson's The Witch if we hadn't been talking about it in the Discord. So like that is so helpful, and it gives me extra context now for these other stories we're reading, which I really appreciate. So yes, let us know what other stories you would like to see us dissect and or approach and or dance all over.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Bye.